Power can make a man blind. And Officer Darren Cole thought his badge was a crown. That's how the story of Eastwood's most feared cop began, with confidence, control, and the cruelest kind of pride. Every officer respected him. Every criminal feared him. He strutted around the precinct like he owned it. The kind of man who believed that the law wasn't written to guide him, but to serve him. People whispered stories about cases that vanished, witnesses who changed their minds overnight, and women who regretted ever crossing his path. But nobody dared to question him. After all, who investigates the investigator? One evening, under the yellow streetlights of downtown, Darren stopped a woman for resisting arrest. Her name was Elena Brooks, a young attorney known for defending people others had given up on. She'd spoken out publicly against police corruption, and that made her his favorite kind of target. The encounter was humiliating. Her car searched, her reputation mocked. She was left standing on the curb as he laughed and drove away, flashing his badge like a trophy. He thought it was over, but he had no idea. He just declared war on the wrong woman. Have you ever seen someone dig their own grave while smiling? That was Darren, right there. The next morning, Elena walked into her office bruised but unbroken. Her assistant gasped, "Elena, what happened?" She just replied softly, "Justice met arrogance on Main Street last night, and I'm not done yet." Instead of filing a complaint, which she knew would vanish in Darren's department, she began gathering evidence quietly. Traffic cams, witness statements, a copy of his body cam footage, which he thought he'd deleted. And then she did something Darren never expected. She filed a civil case. Elena Brooks versus Officer Darren Cole. When the news broke, the entire town froze. A lawyer taking on a cop? That was like walking into a storm wearing lightning rods. The media swarmed. The department panicked. But Darren? He laughed. He'd beaten bigger accusations before. He knew the judges, the prosecutors. They were his golf buddies, his weekend poker friends. "She'll drop it," he told his partner. "They always do." But Elena didn't. Every time he tried to intimidate her, mysterious calls, unmarked cars outside her house, she pushed back harder. She wasn't just fighting for herself anymore. She was fighting for everyone too scared to speak. And then, the court date arrived. But that morning, something happened that even Darren's badge couldn't protect him from. The courtroom was packed. Reporters, police officers, and even the mayor filled the seats. It wasn't just a trial anymore. It was a showdown between power and principle. Darren walked in first, dressed in his uniform, head high. Behind him, his lawyer smirked, confident, prepared, untouchable. Then Elena entered, calm, poised, wearing a white suit that shimmered under the lights. And the room fell silent. The judge looked down. "Ms. Brooks, are you ready to proceed?" She nodded. "Your Honor, I am." Her voice didn't shake once. But what she said next made every heartbeat stop. She called her first witness, a young police officer. And to everyone's shock, it was Darren's own rookie partner, Officer Reed, the same man who'd been with him the night of the arrest. Reed looked pale. He kept glancing at Darren. Elena's tone was calm, but sharp. "Officer Reed, did your partner follow protocol that night?" He hesitated. "No, ma'am, he didn't." The room erupted. Darren slammed the table. "You little." The judge banged the gavel. "Order." But Elena wasn't done. She played the body cam footage, retrieved from a backup system Darren didn't know existed. And there it was, everything. The insults, the threats, the laughter. The moment he turned off his camera, thinking no one would ever see. You could feel the shift in the air. The badge that once protected him was now the spotlight, exposing him. But Darren still had one more weapon, fear. He leaned in close to Elena during a recess. "You think you've won? You don't know who you're dealing with." She just smiled faintly. "Neither did you." Because what Darren didn't know was that someone else was sitting quietly in the back row, watching every move. In the back row sat Samuel Brooks, Elena's estranged father, a retired federal investigator who disappeared from public life years ago. Few knew his name anymore. But those who did knew he'd once led internal affairs investigations that ended more than a few careers. He hadn't spoken to Elena in 5 years. But when he saw her name in the headlines, he came quietly, anonymously. As the trial continued, Darren's defense tried to twist the narrative. She was resisting arrest. She was disrespectful. They even fabricated evidence, confident it'd stick. But Samuel had seen this pattern before. And that night, he called an old contact, a federal attorney who still owed him a favor. He handed over a seal drive. Inside it, records Darren never thought would surface. A string of past misconduct complaints buried under false reports. The next morning, Elena stood again before the court. "Your Honor," she said, "new evidence has come to light." When she displayed those files, the room gasped. Each document was a nail in Darren's coffin. Names, dates, falsified statements, all signed by him. The defense lawyer whispered furiously, "Where did she get this?" Darren's face turned pale. He looked over his shoulder and saw Samuel's cold, steady eyes. That moment, that exact second, was the first time Darren realized something terrifying. This wasn't just about Elena anymore. It was about every lie he'd ever told. And if you've ever seen a man's confidence melt faster than ice in July, that was it. The verdict came 2 days later. The jury didn't even take an hour. Guilty on all counts. Abuse of authority, falsifying reports, obstruction of justice. Darren's badge, once polished and powerful, now lay on the judge's desk like a piece of evidence from a crime scene. He was led away in cuffs, shouting, "You can't do this to me. I am the law." But justice, at last, had a voice louder than his. Elena walked out of the courthouse, surrounded by flashing cameras. Reporters shouted her name, asking for a statement. She paused at the steps and said, "This isn't a victory against one man. It's a reminder that truth doesn't need a badge to have power." As the crowd cheered, her father stepped forward quietly. They didn't speak for a moment, just shared a long, heavy look. Then Samuel said, "You did what I never could. You made them listen." She smiled softly. "No, Dad, we did." The final shot, Darren being escorted into a transport van, his reflection flashing in the mirrored window of the courthouse. For the first time, he looked small, human, and utterly powerless. They say justice moves slow, but sometimes all it needs is one woman who refuses to bow. Because in the end, power isn't about who holds the badge. It's about who holds the truth and dares to speak it.